One. Welcome to the Scoop World Order Friday Commitment Edition. We got a new O-lineman in the fold today. We got JTT arriving to campus tomorrow. Congrats, Nevada. You nailed the JTT thing. How are you feeling this week after JTT committed to the Ohio State University?
It's feeling great. But, as we've talked about many times, we talked about this privately before he committed, now the real work starts. And it's, there's been a lot of hype surrounding him, and it's going to be a big challenge for him to live up to the hype on something like that, because it's just, the number one player in the country. It's almost like an impossibly high standard. And, Coach Mick has got his hands full to getting him ready, and they've got a whole plan that they've laid out for him. But it's going to be a ton of work to even get him in condition so he can compete in fall camp.
Yeah, and I worried about him missing all of summer one. Summer one, for people that aren't familiar with it, that's like kind of the ramp up in conditioning, and summer two is like the absolute bludgeoning in conditioning. So a lot of our people are runners. They run 5Ks, they run marathons, whatever, triathlons, and it'd be like if you skipped, you start a program to get ready to run a marathon, and you skip like the first 9 weeks of it. So the first day that you go out and run, you got to run like 22 miles or whatever, and you're not a marathoner, you're not in shape for it. Like, normally you start off running 6 miles, 8 miles, 10, 12. There's like a stair step approach. Like, if you start right off at 20, man, it's going to look ugly and it's going to be rough. And that's what, it'll be really interesting to see how they handle JTT. I saw that you had a really nice nugget. The second wise man came through with some really good stuff. Talk a little bit about what JTT can expect for his first few days on campus.
Well, one, you can expect a lot of time with Coach Mick, and Coach Mick has been given the mandate to get him ready, not just ready to be one of the guys, but ready to compete for playing time. And they know that the plan for JTT is to be a 3-year and out guy. They want to maximize every minute that they have in here. That could include him playing on both sides of the ball. So if that happens, he's going to have to be, in tip-top shape. And so that involves, some really stringent baseline training to find out where he's at, really careful nutritional assessment and nutritional guide. And the idea of trying to get him down to a target weight and target body fat content. And, he's got to get acclimated to school. He's got to get acclimated to the WAC. He's got to get acclimated to the way things are run at Ohio State, and what best practices are to get ready for the season. So he's got a lot on his plate, but they've laid out to him a very detailed plan. We had a chance to take a look at it. It's a very detailed document laying out step by step what he's going to be going through here the next 2 weeks. And it's going to be there's not going to be a dull moment in his life. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it'll be real interesting to see how hard he's been training on his own. Obviously he's got his personal trainer that he works out with, but it can be done that a guy can contribute week one, because back in, it seems like it wasn't that long ago, but it literally was 18 years ago in 03 when we showed up, like my freshman class, the only guys that enrolled early were Ashton Ubodi and Dante Whitner. The other 18 of us, we showed up on the first day of training camp. That was our first day with the Buckeyes. We didn't have summer one conditioning, summer two conditioning. They literally sent us a booklet, like a strength and conditioning booklet. Follow this, do these workouts, like do this running routine. And it was basically up to you if you were going to do it, or you're going to skip days, or you're going to take it easy or whatever. And I was like gung ho and crazy about wanting to show up in shape, because the last thing I wanted to do was show up to Ohio State and I was like a fringe offer guy, a late offer guy, and not be in shape. Like I gotta be in ripper shape. I gotta be in better shape than anybody, any lineman. And so I was like obsessed with my conditioning. It'll be interesting to see where he's at, because he's had a lot of travel. He took 4 official visits, and for people that have never been on an official visit is like if I say, hey, you can go on an all-inclusive vacation for 3 straight days, and it's top shelf food, top shelf everything, go out and party at night. So it's not really conducive to high level training and conditioning, because it's like a big party for like basically a month, when you go to all these visits. So it'll be real interesting. I'm excited to see what he can do. We also had an O-line commitment today. So Stud is gonna stud. That is why stud is a stud. So talk a little bit about the newest Buckeye from the Colorado area.
Yeah, well, George Fitzpatrick, committed to the Buckeyes today. This is a guy that, I really want to give credit to Alex Gleitman and to, for an early call on him, and to Bill Green for breaking it before anybody had it in terms of a formal commitment date. So our guys were all over this one. But really good looking prospect out of the state of Colorado. Former tight end, really athletic kid. He's a true tackle. And, he's a guy that I'm really excited about because I like those guys that can move, that are athletic, that play hard, smart kid. He's got all the type of attributes that you like. And I think this is a great compliment to Tegros. We're halfway there on our O-line goal. I know some people talked about this being a 3-person class. I never saw that. I thought this would be a 4 lineman class, maybe even a 5 lineman class. But it's a busy O-line room, but Fitzpatrick's going to fit right in there. And I know you've seen some things on tape, and I know you like him a lot as well.
Yeah, I love this film. I watched, there's a few highlights you can find online, and he's really fluid. They love putting him out in space as a tackle. They run a lot of tunnel screens to their wide receiver. They'll go 3 receivers to one side and then their best receiver to the other side. And they run this little concept where they throw like a little flare, like a bubble screen, and he just basically, takes like a fake pass set. The guy runs upfield and he just goes flat down the line and he murders the corner, and he does it consistently. And the only way you can really do that is you got to be able to run, and you got to be agile enough in the open field to get your hands on that guy and get him in the ground. And he loves finishing guys. And the one, he almost puts the guy in the snowdrift because they're playing in Colorado. And there's this big mountain of snow on the side that they use bulldozer or whatever to get it off the field, a snowplow. And but it's really good. I mean, the most important thing to me is that he's very, very athletic. He's long, he's angular, but he finishes. Finishing is an attitude thing, it's an effort thing, it's a pride thing. And I watch a lot of tape on guys that they just don't play hard. They take plays off, they play lazy, they don't, and this was just a highlight reel, but a highlight reel, you usually can get a kind of a feel for how hard a kid plays. Like when I watched Jack Sawyer's highlight reel, like that kid plays so hard. He's like a JJ Watt clone, in terms of how hard he plays the game. He makes amazing plays, on not only as a defensive end, but when he plays quarterback, he'll get a bad snap, grab it, run somebody over the backfield, and then run 20 yards for a touchdown. Or he'll do something just like, did that really just happen? And he's playing better competition than Colorado high school football. He's playing against some really good Central Ohio teams. So I always like seeing the athleticism. Obviously, I'm sure he's a very intelligent kid, or else we wouldn't have looked at him or taken him. So I'm excited about it. I think it's another great one for Stud, and our boy Stud's just killing it, man. I mean, he's got a really loaded up O-line room, and I'm excited to watch these kids develop. So
yeah, well, it's gonna be fun. Like I said, it's the line's about 50. We're about 50% of the way done with O-line recruiting, and it's certainly off to a good start.
Yeah, and anymore, man, I just think you have to over recruit positions, because I just think that there are going to be so many kids transferring out after the year, because it's so easy to transfer that you can't take 3 anymore. You got to take at least 4. You might even take 5, because if guys are getting into their second, third years and they see no pathway to playing time, guys are going to start taking off. It's like Brian Hartline took a 4th receiver, and it's like, well, yeah, because there's probably some rumblings in that room where there's some guys that are 5-star held guys that aren't going to play much this year. They're not going to get the type of burn that they want to be able to show their talents to get to the NFL. So you're going to see guys taking off because it's never been easier to transfer. And frankly, we've recruited so well, we have so much talent that, at a lot of these position rooms, they're going to be turning over fast, because we have a bunch of really talented kids that want to play in the NFL. The only way you get to the NFL is if you play. You got to put film on. And it doesn't matter if you're at Delaware, like Joe Flacco was, or, if you're at North Dakota State, like Trey Lance was, and Carson Wentz. Like, it doesn't matter really what level it is. They just want to see you on the field, throwing the ball, going through progressions, show your athleticism, and you can't do that from the bench. Like I was joking, like Joe Burrow would be a PE teacher in Athens if he would have stayed as Bobby Buckeye and stayed for 5 years and ran out the tunnel on senior day. And he would have been like the best that never was. Instead, he's the #1 overall pick. And I think when something like that happens, and how Justin Fields came in and started for 2 years and was out, and he became a top 10 pick, like that inspires guys to go, chase the NFL. And I think that makes the transfer thing a lot more prevalent than, along with the portal and the east of the transfer, than it ever has been in history. So you got any thoughts on that?
Well, one other thing on that is just, with NIL, you've got booster clubs at other schools right now that are specifically aggregating money to target transfers, and they're going to target transfers with NIL money. And, between the ease, as you mentioned, and, the desire to get the NFL and show your stuff on the field, when you've got schools and individuals actively throwing money at you in the form of NIL to transfer to their school, you're going to see more transfers. And so this is the new reality of football you got to deal with. And it's going to be interesting to see how it impacts, recruiting class sizes, team dynamics, and the number of people you take in a class. So it's definitely, everything's changed. That's for sure.
And for me, it was real illuminating when Mark Antoni told me that, he doesn't really reach out to the recruits as much anymore because he has to spend so much time evaluating guys that are in the portal, or guys that might be in the portal, or, he does a lot more advanced scouting for the team now because he can kind of double dip. Like, he'll watch Oregon's film, which he never used to do, and evaluate their players. And if there's some guy that jumps in, like they had a defensive end who played some games, played a lot from last year, jump in the portal, Mark's already got an eval on that guy. And, if you want to take it a step further and a step, closer to the NIL, like, when you're a pro personnel guy, or, like what Mark is, there's going to be, donor groups and the Elephant Club and those kind of groups. They're going to have their little lists too. They're like, okay, we need a quarterback, who got beat out, who is a 5-star that we really think of, like, he's a good player. Like, should we go after that kid? Or who, who's the next Jameson, Williams, who started at Ohio State, but he was going to get beat out by a bunch of younger guys this year. So he goes to Bama. Like, I mean, you're going to see guys that are like, okay, who's the guy that might be a little restless and, distraught, and maybe we can go throw a sponsorship at him to get him somewhere. Because I just think that the NIL stuff is horrifying to me because, kids are gonna, I mean, if some school says, hey, every kid here averages $80,000 in NIL money a year, and then, like, you go somewhere else and they say, well, we average 3,200, then I think that will affect kids, especially kids from less well-off backgrounds, so to speak. Because if you give a kid from a less well-off background $80,000, he can help mom with rent. He can help her with her car payment. He can help her with her phone payment. Like, it's a lot of money. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's going to be really interesting over the next year or two to see how this shakes out. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I just, I always described the law of unintended consequences, and just sort of figure out, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And, you've got this money flowing into the system, into the players that are in the form of NIL. What happens? What's the impact on the other side? And I think what's unsettling is that it's just so unknown. We just don't know what the impact on this is going to be. And Ohio State's been in a great situation over the last few years. Really, things have really been on autopilot. Well, this is a giant jolt to the system, and like I said, it's going to affect everything you do, and it's going to affect our business. It's going to affect the way we approach our business, and how certain we are about recruits and other things like that. It's a seismic shock to coverage of college football. It's a seismic shock to the game, to the locker room. That dynamic is going to be interesting. So it's going to be exciting to watch, and we'll have a front row seat all the way.
What was your reaction to Phil Knight buying the NFT? Because I know that you play in that space, the NFT space, and like that seems to be the loophole. We've talked, offline about, what is artwork. Like I had a guy make a statue of me. This is great. I've never showed you this, but it's a Kirk Barton statue. So it looks a little limp right here, but it says Barton 74. And if I said, here's my statue, Ken, what's it worth? Like if I was Orlando Pace, you're like, well, I'll give you 50 grand for it. I'm like, all right, here, I'll go to FedEx right now, I'll bubble wrap it. But like, like what's that really worth? Like it's probably worth $10 in real life, but the art, like, I mean, art's got, it's worth what people are willing to pay for it. I mean, do you think that that could be a potential loophole in the system? Because it seems like it could be pretty quick.
Well, once you've opened it up for endorsement, what's the value of an endorsement? You know what I'm saying? Like you could say the endorsement is worth $50 or $5,000 or $50,000. It kind of beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And certainly with art, there's nothing that's been more true than that. So I think with NIL, we just have to accept the fact that none of these, I shouldn't say none of these decisions, but very few of these decisions are going to be rationally based or based upon, eyeballs or clicks or some sort of real return. They're all going to have some other objective, and you're just going to have to look beyond what's the objective. What is the person trying to get? What is the person trying to accomplish from this affiliation with this player? And like I said, Ohio State's going to have to keep a careful eye on it because you've been one of the few guys that's actually been in the locker room, and you know what the impact is on players when one guy rolls up, just signed a $500,000 contract with a clothing company or whatever it is, and other guys in the room are scraping by eating Chipotle. It's going to create some interesting dynamics for sure.
Yeah, and it's always funny to me because people are like, well, they deal with that in the NFL. And I'm like, yeah, well, the lowest paid guy in the NFL is making $800,000. So he's not exactly scraping by. Like he still could buy almost any car he wanted, like whatever. Like he's not making, like with this thing, the spread's going to be very wide, but the floor is so much lower than the NFL. And that's the thing I worry about is like, if some kid who's a starter and he plays like a less premier, like an offensive line, I'm going to just say offensive line. And, hey, I got a deal for $500 to go to this car wash and sign autographs. And then there's, some skill guy who's like, well, I got 50,000 to be with this car dealership and they're going to let me drive a G-Wagon for free. You're just like, I think the way kids are, how impressionable they are, how emotional they are, like I just think it's going to in locker rooms across the country. And then the other flip to it is because me and you, we live in the world of when something goes wrong, someone else has to be blamed for it. And whether it's right or wrong, but like if someone has an endorsement and it's for nationwide insurance, whatever, and like they have a bad game, it's like, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't have done so many nationwide commercials, or maybe you shouldn't have been out, selling your image, and you should have been in the Woody Hayes, doing more drills or watching more film or whatever. Like I can see like, like the good thing of these kids getting paid will turn into a negative real quick when, oh, Peyton Manning lost the Super Bowl. I shouldn't have done so many nationwide commercials. Like, I can see that getting flipped like real quick. I mean, do you agree with that, or can you see that?
No, I think that's absolutely spot on, and just the natural thing of player A feeling slighted because he didn't get the nationwide commercial. Why aren't I getting that commercial? Did Ohio State give him the push? Did Coach Day say something they should have said for me? I just think this is going to it's going to create a lot of issues. And good thing for Ohio State is, as we've talked about, many times, Ohio State's recruiting at a really, really, really high level right now. But the class that they just brought in with JTT coming in as the cherry on top is, in my opinion, the finest class in Ohio State in terms of incoming class, the finest incoming class in Ohio State history, certainly the highest regarded class. And 2022 shaping up to be equally as good, if not better. So you've got a lot of talent in the room, but boy, more money, more problems, and this is going to be interesting to see how they navigate it for sure.
Well, yeah, and even like if you take it a step further with the sponsorship, like if me and you both go to nationwide, and okay, Nevada, we're going to give you 10 grand, Kirk will give you 500. Like, I mean, like I see it, and I mean the can of worms is open at this point. There's nothing they can really do about it, but it's like these next couple months to 2 years is going to be really a fascinating time in college football because when these kids like they hit a losing streak and oh well, maybe she'd spend more time working and practicing harder and less time trying to get your t-shirt sold or your people are so petty with that kind of stuff. But I think it'll be bad for like regular programs, but it could be like just crippling for bad programs, bad culture programs, like a team hits a losing streak and people are pointing fingers and oh you should be more dedicated to your craft, less dedicated to shilling Coca-Cola or whatever. Like I don't know, it's going to be very interesting, but we'll wrap this. But great episode here. We got Monica Johnson coming next on SWO. Are you excited for that one?
No, I am. I'm the Paris Johnson recruitment is something that's been long debated on social media and message boards, and so it'll be nice to hear from the horse's mouth from somebody who's right there in the trenches in terms of how things went down and her perspectives on things. I think Monica brings a real unique view and really the ultimate insider's views of recruiting. So it'll be good to hear from her, and I think people will really enjoy the broadcast.
Yeah, and she, I mean, I can't wait for her to detail kind of how she went through recruiting with PJ, because it was as thorough and as good of a plan as I've ever heard from a parent. Because a lot of parents are scared to say anything. They don't want to, if mom's sitting in, an O-line coach's room, she's not going to question things or say, hey, I want to see this, or hey, this or that. But I'm going to let her tell it. But like, I've sat in those meetings before, and usually moms are scared to death, or dads are even scared to death. They don't want to say the wrong thing. And then all of a sudden their kid doesn't get the Ohio State offer. So they're not going to, they don't want to upset Coach Day or Coach Meyer or Coach Trussell or Stud or Ed Warner. But her system that she had when she was going to all these schools and said, hey, this is what I want to see, was unbelievable. And I literally can't wait to talk to her about it and have that on SWO. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Please, if you enjoy our videos, click subscribe. It helps us a lot. Subscribe to our YouTube page. And if you want to know when the next SWO is coming out, click on the little bell right over here. The little bell will give you an alert, pops right to your phone. And that Monica Johnson episode is probably going to be out Monday night, and it'll be absolutely awesome. So for Nevada Buck, this is Kirk Barton. Appreciate you, Scoop family, my morning workout mafia, and all you guys. You guys are the best. Hope you have a great weekend. And this has been the SWO.